how I got involved was I was doing a little bit of experimenting with choreography with two other people in my team, and my brother Johnny, he liked the concepts and he invited me to be part of Dancer.
So when I auditioned for it, Johnny asked me, so you know this character requires on-screen fighting and you need to prepare for that, so we have to schedule in 3 months of preparation, and it'll be really intense training and you have to be very committed to it. And you know, me being at an audition, wanting to get the part, I said, yeah, of course I'll prepare for the role, of course I'll be part of that. But that's one of the things with Johnny, he does mean what he says all the time, and it was intense, it was a lot of preparation, but it was a whole lot of fun. We prepared for the martial arts choreography by, well, I basically received stunt training 101 in the beginning, learning about distance, learning about timing, learning about proper technique, on how to perform realistic looking fighting on camera, which was a whole different animal for me because I am a martial artist, and prior to the movie I did some martial arts performances, but this training was very, very intense. It was focused. It was a whole lot of fun because everyone that participated in it was fully committed to it. And yeah, so we trained several times a week for 3 to 4 hours at a time for 3 months, and basically got as close to perfecting the choreography. So Johnny was happy for it to shoot it.
John showed me a couple of clips on the fighting style and the way he's intending to shoot it. So when he showed me these clips, I kind of had an idea of what he wanted, and he broke down certain aspects of the fighting, which fighting styles to implement, which one he wanted to see more of. We had a back and forth discussion of having different fighting styles for different people and different characters. So for example, James was very much Taekwondo because he had a Taekwondo background, so we gave him a lot of that.
Alex was very great to work with. He's got an ability to dissect an actor into his strengths and weaknesses, and my experience working with him was that he really spent some time analyzing each of the cast members, finding out what our strengths were, and then using those abilities to incorporate them into the fighting.
Alex did an amazing job with these fighters. He basically picked out the weaknesses and the strengths in everyone, and he placed them into groups. We had this little system where it was a chemistry between the two fighters, or the three fighters. It was like, well, who works well with this and who works well with that person? So we grouped them into 5 separate groups. And we knew that, if one person in group A was weaker with kicking, we'll put another person in group A that is strong with kicking. So we had elements of strengths and weaknesses within. For example, Zoran is quite upper body, so we made sure we give him some Casey fighting method. We knew that Kenji and Marty were quite agile, so we made sure that we give them the longest fight, and we trained a long time to get that particular fight happening. Nico, who was quite big and brutish, he wasn't too good at kicking, but that came out very early on in training. So we go, well, you know what? We're going to give him this Viking-esque brute force and just this speed, and it really worked with him because now he's able to do it rather than trying to do something that he's not able to do. Christian, who was an amazing kicker, he's a karate champion. We knew that whatever we give him, he'll be able to do. Tony, who was an MMA practitioner, he's very much about grappling and coming in and doing those quick low movements. So we make sure that we give him a knife to work with. We give him Korean knife movements. Dylan, who was a Taekwondo champion, kicks, again, stuff like that. So we made sure that we took the person, took their strengths, and then put that into the fights. And then Alex basically was able to identify that very early on.
John's view and ideas were pretty much based around if someone is throwing a punch and then ducking, why isn't that person doing something else? There was a reason for every single hit that's in this fight scene. So I would choreograph Marcus and James, and then I'd show him. And then we would record it as well, we view it back. And then John was always on set, always there when we were doing the rehearsals and choreography. And John had his little inputs here and there of, he didn't like that kick because the camera's going to be on this side, so the kick has to come from another area, but then that would, mess up the choreography, so then we have to redo all that, so the camera's going to be on this side. John's input was more for what looks good on camera.
What I really enjoyed was that Alex also had a way of growing the whole choreography organically. So, like anyone who choreographs fight scenes, he had a master plan. He knew what he wanted out of the scene, but at the same time, he let us discover the fights for ourselves. So some of the moves just didn't work, they just didn't suit the character. And through improvisation and trial and error, we basically developed all the fight scenes organically. And I found that really amazing to work like that.
James, I didn't really need to work too much on James. James was already a martial artist, so he moved brilliantly. If I tell him to do a head high kick, he'll do it. He's always on point.
He was there every single day, every night. Every night he would show up and train. And not once did he complain, not once did he show up unprepared, not once did he show up exhausted or fatigued. The guy is just a machine. He just came and he trained and he just gave so much.
Marcus, on the other hand, very minimal fighting experience. I worked on him a lot. He was the main person I worked on a lot. I think him and James, their fight choreography for the end took us about 2-3 months because that was going to be the big finale, and Marcus was the person that was the least experienced, so I had to bring him up to make him look like he knew how to handle himself on camera.
Alex was easy to work with. He was he was a pleasant guy to be around because he was understanding. He didn't force you to do things. He didn't ask too much of you, not all the time. And I guess he was really thorough in the way he explained things. And I'm happy that it was Alex that taught James and I, our fight scene, because I don't think anyone else really would have done it in that period of time, that short period of time that we had, being as thorough as he was and as good as he is.
When I mentioned that, look, there is martial arts training to him, he just took that and went, yep, let's do it. He's a guy who's never moved like this in his life. He's a guy who's never thrown a punch, never thrown a kick. By the end of it, it was so second nature to him that it looked like he was doing it for years. Now, if that doesn't speak as testimony to his character, I don't know what does, because he just dedicated so much. He gave so much of himself to this role.
Alex brought out the ability in me, I guess, by just having faith in me, like knowing that I'd never done this type of stuff before. He put a lot of faith in me, and just, when at times when I thought I did really badly, he would say, no, that's fine. Like, you're still it's baby steps. You'll get there. He really instilled like a belief in myself, which was really important. He gave me a confidence that I can't thank him enough for doing that, because it worked out well.
And one of the key things that Alex and I spoke about early on was the fact that we don't want to cut. We want to keep the camera on these fighters as long as possible. So it's easy to say that you want to accomplish that, but then you got to go back to the training and go, well, these guys have to know these moves like it's second nature to them. And that's why the training took so long. It was 2-3 days a week for 3 months. It was just really full on training. And they never complained. They never complained once.
The other challenge, of course, was as well that learning all the choreography was great, and after the end of the rehearsals, we were happy with it. We thought we nailed it, but then doing it on the days is just another challenge in itself because of time constraints, fatigue, which I never believed to be really an issue. But if you do fight scenes from morning till evening, then yeah, you're gonna start feeling it. The other thing was as well that we shot most of the fighting at a fairly fast speed as well. Not something that I've ever done before at that level. So it was really, really amazing to work like that. And I guess it's sort of true when people say pressure creates diamonds. That pressure that we had on set and limited budget and basically only limited amount of time to get the scene on camera. I think it gave most of the fight scenes that needed grunt as well, because we didn't execute it as perfectly as in the rehearsals, and that sort of added a bit of a realism as well to the fight scenes.
So very early on, what Alex and I spoke about was the fact that when we do shoot this fight scene, we're going to be so compressed for time that we have to use that to our advantage. And by that, James, we knew James had a cutoff point where he would just be too exhausted to go on. But he didn't show us that during the fight training. But it was something that we spoke about and go, well, if this happens, what are we going to do? Because we've only got one day to shoot the fights. So the ratio of the fight scene was basically 3 months of training, 5 hours of filming, and 6 minutes of footage. So that's a ratio that it ended up being. But on the day, we basically shot it the way we trained. So it was from the start of the narrative to the end of it. So by the end fight scene with Kenji and Marty, I knew that James would be tired. I knew that his punches would not fall as well executed as in the first part of the fight. And I spoke to Alex about that, and we decided that we're okay with that because it would be based in reality. So I spoke to James. I'm like, look, if you do get tired and your punches don't land, that's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just be the character. And by that is like that character of Richard would be extremely exhausted by the time he gets to those last two bodyguards. And I was like, that's fine. Be out of breath. Take your time. Get up as clumsily as you want to be. Don't make your kicks and your punches smooth because that's not reality.
It was the whole day was basically fighting. So we started at the door. Another thing I really enjoyed was that we did the fights in order. So it actually it fed me as a character because I felt more exhausted, which also made me fight more exhausted, which also added to the level of realism of the character in that sense. But that day was really long. It was many retakes, many fights. And at the last fight, I just felt like falling to the ground, not continuing, but we had to finish that day, so we just pulled through and made it happen. But it just shows that if you have a team that is fully committed, there's no choice but just to complete the job and getting it done and giving you everything.
My biggest fear was these guys hurting themselves. So I had to teach them how to stop in time, where to stop. I had to show them that the camera's going to come from this angle, so you have to move certain pace to the left, certain pace to the right, where to kick. They got that pretty well. Again, with the strip club fight scene, when we choreographed that, we had to make them like a pack of wolves.
Go from that opening hallway fight all the way to the strip club, and then these two amazingly talented fighters, Kenji and Marty, who really had the best on the day because they were waiting around for 5 hours until it was their turn. So they were already refreshed and energized and ready to go. And James had to match their level of energy. And I think he did an amazing job because it adds to his character. It just adds to his professionalism and the way he handled himself there on that day. It's just nothing short of inspirational. I remember going to pat him on the back at the end of that fight scene and say, job well done, mate, really, really well done. And as I was patting him on the back, my hands was just drenched with sweat. I mean, this guy committed so much on that day that he sweat through his clothes and his jacket was drenched. So that's not testament to the kind of character he is. And as a person, then I don't know what is.
So after all the fighting on that day, the hardest thing was to carry Zoe, because my character carries her out of the strip club, and we just did a whole day of fighting. I also should add on that day, I mean, during that time I was going through a diet change, so I just basically abstained from any carbs, and that also added more fatigue to me as a person. And it was the most tiring thing to just carry her, because I was so depleted that my arms just gave way. And with every additional take that we had to do of that particular scene, I just thought, I need someone to hold her for me, because I was just ready to drop her. Not a compliment you should pay to any woman, though.
We sent Richard Norton the fight choreography, and he emailed us back, and he said that the choreography was on point. He liked it, and we shared that with the group, and that amped him up even more. So then when it came time to show Richard Norton, and when he came down, everyone was just a little bit jittery. Everyone was nervous, because he's an idol in these guys' eyes in the martial arts world. I think it boosted everyone's confidence a bit more. They tried more, they did more, they worked more, they gave it that extra 10% because he was there watching. I think these guys really pushed themselves on that day.
The stuff that's come out is amazing, and I couldn't be more happier with these guys. They're my brothers, and I'm eternally grateful for them, so thank you.